Hello, I'm Rayhanati. So I actually attempted to do this as a live stream, and unfortunately, after 40 minutes of talking and checking the video, I discovered the audio wasn't working. So I'm just recording this now. This is attempt number 2. So hopefully it's all good. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing what I do when my psoriasis flares very, very badly. So just to I guess, define what very bad is for me. So when my skin's been really bad, it's spread all over my body. There's swelling. Some parts are dry and cracked and weeping and can bleed. There's a lot of pain. Like it's actually even difficult for me to walk and sit and even sleeping. I don't get a lot of sleep because if it's on a part of my body and I'm sleeping on the wound, it's literally like I guess being a burn victim. Like it looks like you're a burn victim. It does depend on, I guess, the type of psoriasis you have, but when I've had psoriasis and it's been very bad, it's like I've had every type of psoriasis all at once. So that's to kind of define when I say really bad. In my previous video, I talked about what I do now just to maintain my skin health so that it keeps it away. And alhamdulillah, mashallah, my skin's been clear for nearly a year now. So, and prior to that, I've had years where it's been fine, but this is the first time that I'm consistent of doing the Wiggers maintenance plan, which you can look at, and I'll link that to that as well in my description. But this particular video is focusing on, I guess, some things a little bit more extreme of what I do just to calm my skin down. And then once my skin's clear, I switch back to my maintenance plan. So let's dive in. So first thing is I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so in my thumbnail, I talked about how I came up with an acronym, the C.S.D.S Plan. Just before I dive into this plan of how to just do damage control when my skin is really, really bad, I just want to, again, just go through some disclaimers. Firstly, I'm not a health professional. I've learned a lot from health professionals in the natural medicine world, and that's what I'm discussing is based on. I've also learned a lot just from online as well. So don't take what I say as health advice, especially some areas of what I'm going to share. I'll be bringing this disclaimer up again because every single body is different. What works from one person is not necessarily going to work for everyone. And really my intention with sharing is because I have learned a lot from people who've shared, and it's been about me testing this and testing that and finding this works, this doesn't work. So for example, there are a lot of people who talk about keto and how the keto diet has worked for them. So I actually tried keto for about a month and it just wasn't really working for me, maybe because of my ethnic background. Like I'm Indonesian, so rice is a big part of our diet, and the ironic thing is literally my skin started to get better when I started to eat rice again, but obviously in moderation. I was just controlling my portions. So that's just something I just want to start off with is that. Secondly is I've seen health professionals in the national medicine space, and they've kind of customized, these are the herbal-based things we'll try for you. And then in that process, I've learned what works for me. So I really actually do recommend seeing a naturopath if you can, or a Chinese herbalist who can sort of then teach you what your body needs. So again, I'll bring that up again. I learned this from my naturopath, Kirsty, and I actually have linked to her in my description, and any resources I share, I'll link in the description. So I just wanted to start off with that, and you're going to hear me bring it up again because when you're putting things into your body, it might have a different effect from one person to another. So always consult your health professional that you trust and that you've have a great relationship with before you do anything, especially things that are a little bit more drastic, where again I'll actually be sharing some of the more drastic things I've done just to calm my skin down. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing is something that I learned when I saw a Chinese herbalist. So it's the Chinese meridian chart. So how does this help me with my psoriasis? So when I saw a Chinese herbalist, one thing that was just incredibly fascinating that I learned from him was that the actual place in your body, on your body, where the skin flares, it corresponds to like an internal organ or something else within you where there is an imbalance. I'll give you an example. So when I'd see him, I was taking the herbal medicines, and he would tell me, he would point and he would say, that spot corresponds to your stomach. That is your body trying to tell you that you need to change your diet. You need to clean up your diet. And I didn't initially. But when I finally did, I finally decided I'm just going to try it for 1 week. I really love my food, but just for 1 week, I'll eat clean. I'll just eat a small portion of rice, green vegetables, steamed, not too much spice, no red meat, fish, etc. And within a couple of days, my skin started clearing like so fast. It was crazy how fast it actually got better when I actually changed my diet. So, but the key thing that I'm trying to share is that the place my skin flared was a clue to where the imbalance was in my body. And that then guided me to the extra things I needed to do that would help with my skin healing. So then what happened last year, I had in my previous video, I talked about how last year I had a really bad flare just because of stress and, prior to that, just not really looking after my diet and that buildup of the gunk, I guess, in my body. So what happened last year was I just assume it's probably my stomach. All the spots in my body where my skin is, well, it's probably my stomach. But so I cleaned up my diet and my skin was clearing everywhere except one spot on my right arm. It would not go away. Like months were passing and I'm like, my whole body is now clear except this one spot. And I was reminded of the Chinese meridian chart. So I'm going to show you that chart. And I'll share the link to this in my description. But how does it work? So essentially they're these meridian lines, and everything along this line corresponds to something internal or something else in your body. So for example, stomach, I mentioned stomach, so that's like that brown line. So it was on my leg, it literally was on these spots. It could be on the thigh. If it's on the upper body, it could be around the neck. So those all cleared. But I actually discovered last year that on my arm, it was actually this pink one, which is the pericardium meridian. Now, I'm not a Chinese herbalist, so obviously the best thing to do is to see a Chinese herbalist and they can tell you more about this because I haven't studied it. It's just purely just that tiny little thing I took away from that Chinese herbalist that I still remembered. So because I'm not a Chinese herbalist, but I was just curious, what is the pericardium meridian mean? What is it? If I don't have access to a Chinese herbalist, like what did I do or what can you do? I literally just go to Google. So I just went Google and I type in pericardium meridian, and then I would put in symptoms. like this. And then there'll be lots of articles about it, and I would just quickly, check. So for example, could be physical symptoms, but I just read a more detailed article. So let's see. I might even just add the word Chinese medicine. And then and essentially, I'll just read what it tells me. And is there anything that I'm like, oh my God, yes, that's what's going on for me? And so in my case, I discovered that it wasn't actually just my stomach. It was nothing to do with my stomach, but the pericardial medium, it relates to your heart. And so I was going through I guess, emotional stress at the time, which I definitely was, and that was not resolved. And until I really, I guess, addressed that or did something to kind of address that, that spot was just not going to go away. So that was pretty mind-blowing that that came away from literally the exact spot where the skin flare had happened. So yeah, so that's just the first thing, the Chinese meridian chart and how incredibly powerful it is. Like when I learned that, and especially what I experienced last year, because I just explained what I then did. So I actually did address it, I started to do things to address that stress. My skin, like when I show friends the before and after of my skin, within a week, like 1 week later, my skin, they're like, Ray, that is a different arm. Like that is not even the same arm. Like it was so crazy how quickly it got better just by addressing that one thing, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, no, alhamdulillah, that was kind of like the last part of my skin healing. And then it's been, alhamdulillah, thankfully under control using my Wiggers plan. So that's the Chinese meridian chart. So the second thing is supplements. So this is where I need to go through my disclaimers again, because especially when you're increasing certain supplements, really you ideally want to follow a health professional, or I guess at least the packaging. So yes, so as we go through the supplements area, please, don't just take this as, oh yeah, this is gospel, I'm just going to do it. Like, please consult a health professional. So in my Wiggers maintenance plan, I talk about supplements and some of the supplements that I just have day to day to maintain my skin health. But when I've had a really bad flare, these are things I've learned from my naturopath that I mentioned, I've linked to in my description. And so I guess something to be aware about, like I mentioned in my introduction, is the naturopath will usually tailor something to you because they'll ask you, what's going on for you. So if you're a bit more stressed, they might recommend a little bit more of something that addresses that stress. If it's something else, then they'll typically give you something to address that. So what I'm sharing is actually very tailored to me, which is, but I just thought, you know what, like there are some things that just generally are good to for your body. So I am going to share it, but with that massive disclaimer of it's best to talk to a health professional. So first thing is, let me just get my notes. So the first thing is vitamin D. So I talk about vitamin D in my Wiggers plan. So vitamin D is just something that's good for your just general health, but certainly skin health. And often if you're vitamin D deficient, you may have skin problems. So when I have a flare, I increase my vitamin D intake. And one important thing is when you increase your vitamin D, it's actually good to also take K2, because what happens is vitamin D, it kind of it sort of produces more calcium in your body. There's something, I'm not a health professional, but there's I might actually just Google it just to explain what I mean. So vitamin D, why take vitamin K2 with D3? So the reason is it ensures calcium is absorbed more easily because K2 activates protein and that integrates calcium into the bone. So if you're increasing vitamin D, there's going to be more calcium in your body. And then if you have too much calcium, that's obviously not going to be good for you. So it'll be an adverse effect. So to balance out that effect, that's why K2 is really important. So I do vitamin D and then I make sure I have K2 and I just, again, follow the packaging, or if you see a naturopath, they would actually tell you this is how much you should take. So that's the first one. The second one is increasing my immune support. So that can be as simple as vitamin C, but one of the things I really like to take is echinacea. Sometimes you get those bottles of, immune mixes like, echinacea and garlic and zinc, for example. So I have the maximum that the bottle might recommend because, I want to boost my immune system. So that's another thing. And basically, this is something that when I see Kirsty, like she'll give me a bottle of a herbal based thing that supports my immune system. So yeah. So next is I increase like cod liver oil or a fish oil. So I like cod liver oil because I learned that it actually has vitamin D in it. So again, it has that helps, reinforce all the other stuff. So that's the other one. So next is L-glutamine. I take L-glutamine. So L-glutamine helps rebuild the gut lining. So you can typically get it from like a health food stores, like even those, nutrition, supplement warehouse type stores. So if you don't want to take it as like a powder form, what this actually helps with your digestive system because it's helping rebuild your gut lining. So you can actually make purple cabbage sauerkraut, and that actually has L-glutamine. So it's really easy to make. Literally, you just need purple cabbage and salt. If you just do a YouTube search on how to make sauerkraut, you'll see how easy it is. And you can even adjust sort of how the sourness that you like. So yeah, that's something else that I find really helpful is that. Next is I have something for my liver health, which is milk thistles. Again, I just follow the packaging. So again, it's just to kind of clean up all my internals that maybe I've been neglecting, and liver is something else that's typically connected to your skin health. So yeah. And then the last one is, again, this is something quite specific to me. So it just may not be necessarily something that everyone needs, but it's something that Kirsty will kind of say, yep, because of what's going on for you, this is what I recommend, which is adrenal support. So just like again, just depends, like especially like if I'm kind of a bit stressed or just depending on what's kind of going on for me, and if it's affecting, so certainly if it's affecting like, my monthly cycle and things like that. So that's something that I also am conscious of that is has just helped. So that is supplements. So the next one is diet. So that's no surprise there. So I'm just going to talk through, I guess when it comes to diet, if you've already found something that works for you, for instance, keto is for some people, then just honestly, just stick to that. What I will share though is these are things that I've learned from my naturopath Kirsty, that are firstly things that maybe a lot of people aren't taking enough of, and then some things that have adverse effects for psoriasis. So I'll just share some of those. So the first one is, no surprise, greens. So I talk about that in my Wiggers maintenance plan, the importance of greens every day. So if you find that you are struggling to have greens, like you don't know how to cook them so they taste nice, it doesn't go with the meal you had planned, then like I mentioned in my last video, I recommend just having it as a green smoothie, like literally just cucumber, spinach, chuck something sweet in there like pineapple, just to make it a bit more palatable, and just scull it. So if you do that, at the very least, it just keeps your internal health strong, and that's what's helped me keep my skin well, is doing that at the very least. So greens. Next is avoiding sugar. So when my skin's very, very bad, anything sugary, I just do not. I literally, like a diabetic, I have nothing like that. Sugar, even carbs, I reduce. Because I mean, I see the immediate effect with my skin. If I have sugar and my skin's in a really bad state, it cracks and weeps, and then I can't sleep. It's angry on the inside, and it's like so itchy. Like, yeah. So sugar is a big one. In those extreme circumstances where my skin's really, really bad. Next is dairy. So dairy can be triggering when it comes to psoriasis. So again, I just completely avoid dairy. Although things like Greek yogurt, because it's good for your gut, like I find are okay, but I kind of will avoid milk, and cheese is a definite no. Sorry for people who love cheese. But yeah, dairy is something to be aware of. Next is like spices. So spices, again, they actually really make me itchy if I have them when my skin's really bad. So like, chili, even a lot of pepper, all that kind of stuff. In that extreme state, I avoid it. And then last thing is, this is something that I do that's quite extreme. And this is when, as I mentioned, when it's in a very bad state, I do this just to calm it down. So I actually do 2 to 3 days liquid only meals, but plus a protein. So what do I mean by that? I mean like vegetable soups. I mean, like smoothies, or, vegetable fruit smoothies, probably more with the vegetables than the fruit, like less of the fruit because of the sweetness. So then I'll do 2 or 3 days liquid meals, but I make sure I have protein, because protein helps with healing. And I just go to like I look at a macros calculator online, which I'll link to in the description. So that's where you can work out, based on your body weight, how much protein should you be having a day. So if you have too much, it basically becomes sugar. If you have too little, then you're not having enough for your system, essentially. So I'll have protein, like boiled egg, fish, the proportion I'm supposed to have, and then I'll have those liquid meals, and I do that for 2 or 3 days. And then the other days I'll still eat clean following the above, but then I'll have solids, like I'll have rice and vegetables and like whole foods. There are people who do like a juice cleanse that I've heard really helps them with psoriasis, but I just find that's a bit too extreme for me. So this is kind of my in-between, but towards extreme end of actions that I take to calm my skin down. And then what I do is, as my skin starts to calm down, starts to clear, I then reduce it. So I then do only 2 days a week liquids, then 1 day a week, and eventually I just do solids again when my skin's kind of a lot more clearer. So that is the diet part of my C.S.D.S plan. So the last one is really, really big and probably the most challenging one, because this is often why people even discover they have psoriasis. It's actually stress management. For some reason, it doesn't like my big screen. There we go, stress management. So as I mentioned, like in my previous video, but I might have mentioned it as well in this video, a lot of us who have a skin condition, we are, not really maybe looking after our diet but we're fine. And then some kind of stress comes into our life and then our body breaks down, and that's when it gets really, really bad. So last year when I had that really bad flare, I really focus a lot of time on just learning more about stress. And stress is kind of associated a lot with sort of cortisol levels in your body being increased and spiked. So I try to learn about, what lowers cortisol levels. And these are some of the things that I've learned and actually applied, and it just really, really helps. So the first one is outdoor walks every day. So just the action of walking is de-stressing, but also being in the sun. If it's not winter, the vitamin D actually lowers cortisol, so that actually helps with stress management. So that's something that I really try to incorporate. And again, if you've never done it before, and you want to try baby steps, just do it once a week if you can't do it every day, and just do it as often as you can, because that really, really, really helped me. So the second thing is taking naps. So doing a siesta every day, 15 to 30 minutes siesta, power nap, nana nap, whatever you want to call it. So why is that important? Well, sleep is actually very important, first of all. Sleep is the time when your body repairs itself, in particular deep sleep. But just don't stress about the stress. So that's the mistake I made. So I knew sleep was important, but because of how bad my skin was, I was not getting enough sleep, because literally I couldn't sleep without pain. So I was only getting like a few hours of sleep and poor quality sleep. And then I would stress because I wasn't getting sleep, knowing I need the sleep to get better, which doesn't help. So then what I did was I mentally told myself, it doesn't matter how many hours sleep I get, because it's not my fault. I can't help it in the state I'm in right now. But if I haven't had enough quality sleep, I'm just going to take more naps in my day. And I don't even need to be actually sleeping. So if I am, in afternoon, I just set a 15-minute timer. I lie down on my bed, I close my eyes, and I just keep my eyes closed and at the very least rest for 15 minutes. And incredibly, just that, I could actually feel my skin calming down after that nap. So that's just, a tip when it comes to stress management. So next is sunbathing. Because of the UV, not the UV. Is it UV? There's something in the sun. Again, I'm proving to you I'm not a health professional. There's something in the sun that actually helps with skin generally, which is why vitamin D, that's from the sun. So basically, excuse me, it's lunch very soon. So basically I will do a 15-minute just sunbathe in the sun in my backyard. Try to do that once or twice a week. Obviously not too long, because you don't want skin cancer. Totally the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. So that's just something that I would also do, and that helps with de-stressing. because of the vitamin D that lowers cortisol levels. And then finally, the last thing that I did is a sea swim, 15 minutes like once a week. So obviously, if you're landlocked, then this won't be something that you'll be able to do. But just the seawater is so healing for skin. So it definitely is something that I found like really helped me, and something that my naturopath Kirsty recommended. But like not too long, because obviously that salty water can be quite dehydrating and drying for the skin. So I'll just do 15 minutes, get out, do a sunbathe to dry up, and then do that once a week. And that also just helps with when it's in that very, very bad state. But yeah, just in terms of, I guess, topical things, this is something that unfortunately I can't help you with topical stuff. Other than like just generally coconut yogurt, not yogurt, sorry, coconut oil. That is something that because it's antifungal, and they're things that I have sort of helped me with some essential oils. But otherwise, like my naturopath Kirsty, she makes these creams that are quite specific to the state that the psoriasis is in. So for those of you who have psoriasis, you might then be aware that there's like a weeping stage, and then when there's a dry stage. So they are actually things that are super helpful that I've actually used, that also have helped me. So yeah. But otherwise, that does bring me to the end of my C.S.D.S plan, when my skin's extremely bad. But yeah, I hope that that was helpful. But as always, as I mentioned, best thing to do obviously is to see somebody, a health professional, or at the very least, please consult a health professional. But I'm just sharing this purely for people who maybe don't have access to someone. They've tried everything and nothing's worked. And even if like one small thing that I've found work for me, if that can help someone, then yeah, that's essentially my hope. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, we'll see you next time with another topic.